Hi everyone, welcome to today's live stream. Today we are going to do, as part of our DevOps mentorship, we are going to learn about Linux, the fundamentals of Linux, which is one of the key things as a DevOps engineer you must know. So we are going to learn about Linux. We are going to learn about a lot of things that will help us upskill as part of our learning journey in the mentorship um, program. And so I'm going to share my screen and then we will walk through the things that we'll be learning in our mentorship journey. So please give me a reaction if you can see my screen. Give me a reaction if you can see my screen. Can you guys hear me? Hello guys, can you guys hear me? Okay, can you guys hear me? Can you see my screen? And can you see my screen? Okay, so you guys can hear me. Okay, so for today's lesson, we are going to learn about the fundamentals of Linux, and we'll start with the folder structure. Even before that, we in the get started folder, we are going to look at the fundamentals. We are going to look at the fundamentals, and then we look at the Linux structure, and then we look at the Linux distributions as well. We will not do setup because I created this course whereby I set up Linux in a Docker container and other stuff. So we are not going to do that. We are going to go with the either a VM or an EC2 instance. And also, we are going to look at package manager, what package manager is in Linux. Then we follow up with folder structure in Linux. So we look at what folder structure is and how the Linux folder structure is what it's all about. And then we also look at user management. We'll learn about user management, how to change permissions for various users, also how to create a user, how to assign users user permissions, and all of that. And then we also look at file management. So we look at how to set up a file, create a file, how to use the Linux text editor to edit files. And then we also look at shortcuts for Vim shortcuts. We look at file permissions. We're going to look at file permissions. We're going to talk about what file permissions are and how to assign file permissions. And then also we look at process management in Linux. We look at what a process management is. We look at process ID, some of the things that we can cover. We can look at how to view processes here and there. And then we look at monitoring in Linux. So with the monitoring, we are going to look at system monitoring. We are going to look at some commands that you can run to display certain monitoring activity or certain processes that is happening within the system. And then we also look at networking. Networking is very important in Linux. In everything that you do, Docker networking, Kubernetes networking, all these things, you need to understand how Linux networking works. So for this, we'll look at how to show some IPs, how to debug, how to kill if a browser a URL is not working. How do you debug or maybe a website is not accessible. How do you debug this on your server? We'll look at all these things. And then finally, we will end with disk management. We look at storages, we look at how to display disks, how to check whether your hard disk of your system or server disk is full or not. And then also how to probably create like partitions in the on Linux, and then also how to mount decks or partitions that you created. So if you haven't subscribed, if you are here and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, kindly do that as we begin with our tutorial. So for this tutorial, I'm gonna use a VM so that we can be running this command. Now, what I want you guys to do is that also ensure that you are following what I'm doing and you're also practicing it. You are also practicing it on your own. Don't just be watching the screen, but you need to also engage in what we are doing. You need to practice. But if you don't practice, you forget. Okay, so when I type any command, I will talk about the command, what we are trying to do, what we are trying to achieve, and then also you also do the same on your computer. So basically, we are all going to learn together. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen for the server. So I'm gonna remove the sharing and then also share my server screen. If you can't hear me or if you have any questions, please ask. Somebody is saying, please, how do we have access to this file or file on Docker? Um, not sure I understand your question. I'm not sure I understand your question. How do we have access? If you're asking if how you can have you can have access to this file, yes, I will push it to my GitHub repository and then I'll share the link with you. I know some of you have access to my GitHub repository, so I'll share the GitHub repositories with you. So at this moment, I'm going to open the server that we'll be using to practice or this demo. I'm referring to the Linux guide you are displaying. Oh, okay. Yes, I will share it. I'll push it to my GitHub repository, and then I'll share the link with you on the Discord resource channel so that you can have it over there. Okay. Please, if you have any question, keep your questions coming. Keep your questions coming. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so we are going to start with getting started, and then we look at what Linus is. So basically, Linus is one of the tools that empowers everything you do as a DevOps engineer, from Kubernetes containers, Kubernetes pods, Docker containers, every single thing that you do as a DevOps engineer, from setting up Jenkins, CI/CD pipeline, all these things, you run a lot of Linux commands. So it is important that you understand and then the basics of Linux, and then you can be able to implement this whilst working or doing your own project. And then also when you move to a company and then you are working in a company, this becomes part of your daily activities or your daily tasks that you do. So why Linux? Linux is free, and then also what, open source. Okay, Linux is free. It is open source. Linux does not require any expensive licensing fee. So basically making it cost effective choice for companies. And then also for maintenance, Linux is low in maintenance costs. Linux is stable and requires minimal maintenance. That's reducing operational what expenses. And also Why Linux? Linux, in terms of performance and efficiency, that's better resource utilization. So Linux is lightweight and consumes fewer system resources compared to Windows. Okay, it is lightweight in terms of scalability. That is, Linux has high scalability. Linux is, efficiently scales from small embedded systems to enterprise data centers without any performance degradation. So, in terms of security, so security and reliability, um, Linux is less vulnerable to malwares. Okay, Linux is less vulnerable to malware. So Linux has a strong user privileges separation, and so making it more secure against viruses and then also what malwares. It's hard for people to just break into your Linux operating system and then start manipulating data or running malicious script on your Linux server. It is hard for people to do that. Also, for transparency, in terms of updates, Linux has regular security patches. Okay, so it ensures that always your system is stable without you requiring to boot the server every time. Um, Somebody say it is looking blurry. Yes, I will fix that once we start writing commands. Okay. And one of the ways by which Linux is better than Windows is high stability. So Linux systems can run for years without any crash. Okay, they can run for years without any what crashes, and it also ensures that your server has a better uptime and then reliability. So that is the reason why people always choose what Linux. And you look at Linux structure. So the core component of Linux is it has like a different layer. Okay, so we have the application user applications eh, layer. We also have the system libraries layer, and we also have the system utility what layer. So basically, there are four there are 4 or 5 different layers of the Linux component. Okay, the first one I mentioned, the user application layer. So for user application, you can talk about Docker, you can talk about Apache, you can talk about Vim, you can talk about Nano. So these are like basically the user application layer and any other application that you run on what Linux. Okay, and then we also have as part of the user application, you can talk about shell scripting, Bash, and which are also like part of the operating what system. Okay, and then you talk about Linux system libraries. Okay, we have GLBC, LIBC, OpenSSL, etc. So basically, these are all. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of them. As we start running commands, you will be able to see all these libraries that I'm talking about. And then we also have system Linux system utilities. Okay. So with Linux system utilities, you're able to use them to run certain commands to manage the Linux system. So you can talk about list, you can talk about grep, you can talk about systemctl. There are a lot of them. So we will basically, once we start running the commands, I'll be showing you all of that. And then we also have the Linux kernel processes. So you can talk about memory, you can talk about file system, you can talk about the network. Okay, so these are core part of the operating system, like I mentioned earlier. And then you also talk about the hardware part of the Linux system, which you have the CPU, the RAM, the DEX, the network, and then other peripherals. So for the hardware layer of the Linux components. Okay, so basically you have the physical component of the computer. Okay, You have the physical component. So in terms of a server, you can talk about the CPU, you can talk about the RAM, you can talk about the disks, you can talk about network interfaces. Okay, so these are the physical or the hardware layer of the Linux system. And then we also have the operating system. So basically the operating system interacts with the hardware using the device drivers. Okay, so every operating system has device what drivers. Okay, um yes, you let's put it in this way. It's like somebody, so the device drivers is more like a middleman that that helps users to interact with the what the operating system. So basically, um as a user, when you type on the keyboard, okay, the keyboard has a driver. So that driver is serving as a middleman between the keyboard, which is the hardware layer, and then the operating system. Okay. So basically, every time you press on any key on the keyboard, before that particular key is typed, there is a keyboard driver that is what harnessing that operations between you, the user, and then also the operating system itself. So every hardware component has its own device driver that it interacts with, helps to interact with the operating system. And then also we talk about the Linux kernel. So the Linux kernel is responsible for directly managing system resources. Okay, and what are these system resources? You can talk about process management. You can talk about scheduling tasks like cron jobs and all of that. Okay, and then also when you are multitasking, like in Linux, you are running multiple Docker containers. You are also running a bash script. This is like performing a multitask. So the kernel is able to handle all these different system resources that you are um, manipulating. And then also you talk about memory management. So the kernel also helps to what to perform memory management. The kernel is able to allocate and deallocate RAM to tasks. So every operation that you perform on Linux, it consumes some sort of memory, and so the kernel is able to handle um, or allocate memory to each and every task that you perform. And then also you talk about I spoke to the device drivers earlier. So the device drivers, as I mentioned, act as an what interface between the software and then the hardware. So the software is the operating system that is running on your server, and then the hardware is the things that the physical object that you interact with, so like the keyboard, the mouse, or even the server itself, the server rack. Okay, the whole body of the server rack. These are hardware component. And then you talk about what file system. So basically the file system manages how data is stored and retrieved. Okay, so the file system manages what data. In a simple put, the file system manages what data. So it manages how the data is stored on the server, and then also how that data is what is retrieved. And then the other thing also is the network management. So the kernel also manages what networks. Okay, so it basically handles the communication between the system. Mm. So when you deploy applications on the Linux server, okay, the kernel is able to handle all these networking and services. That's any communication that happens within the system. And then also you talk about the shell command or CLI. CLI is commonly means command line what interface. Okay. And what this CLI does is that it helps us to be able to run queries on the server. Okay. So a command line interpreter that basically allow users to interact with the kernel. So the CLI helps us to what to interact with the kernel as users, and it has examples of tools that it uses is what Bash, the ZSH, we have fish, the dash, and then KSH. So these are like, I think the most popular one is the bash. And then also, when it comes to the command line interface, the kernel converts user commands into system calls for the kernel. So basically, like I said, how we are able to interact with the system, all these things is being handled. And then you have user applications. I mentioned user applications earlier. So basically, like any user programs like web browsers, text editors, DevOps tools that you install on the server. And then finally, we have the application also interact with the Linux operating system using the system calls via the shell or the graphic user interface. Okay, so that's just the structure of what Linux. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you don't understand anything in the structure of Linux, just let me know. And then also, Linux is the foundational name for the operating system. Okay, but then it has like different types of operating systems. Okay, so in a more technical term, we call them Linux what distros. Okay, so Linux distributions or distros are different versions of what Linux that's package the Linux kernel with various what software. So basically, system utilities and package managers. So each Linux distro is designed for different use cases. Okay, yes, each Linux distro or distributions is designed for different use cases. So basically, you can have like a personal computing that you like your personal computer. Okay, so you have a personal computer with your own Linux distribution stored on it, that is you are using it to like perform basic tasks. You can also have like server, so basically like high powered server like AWS data center, Amazon data center, sorry, Azure data center, Google data center. These are like data centers that use like high powered um server instances. And so they also have a particular Linux distro that runs on this what server. Then those who are more into security, so they also have like a particular Linux distro that they like a lot. So um basically some of the popular Linux distributions or distros that I know, number one is what Ubuntu. Okay, so somebody may ask, what is Ubuntu? So Ubuntu is one of the most beginner friendly Linux distributions that is widely used for personal and server use. Okay, and it is just great. It has a very great community support. So out of the Linux distributions, Ubuntu is one of the most popular ones, and it is also user friendly. So what exactly we'll be using in this demo is it's one of the Ubuntu systems. Okay, and then we also have another Linux distribution called CentOS. So CentOS was discontinued, I think earlier this year. Yeah, earlier this year, and it was replaced by another distro called um I, I think I'll get the name. I'll get the name and then I'll share with you. So, but Saint OS was discontinued recently. So and it okay, so it was replaced by Alma Linus or Rocky Linus. Yes, the Saint OS is replaced by what? By Rocky Linus. You can Google Rocky Linus and then you'll be able to see how it looks like. So CentOS, as I said earlier, has been replaced by Rocky Linux. And so basically, it is also one of the popular choice for servers. Okay, so and it is also based on the Red Hat Enterprise Linux. That's real. Okay, so you hear people say real. The full meaning of real is Red Hat Enterprise what Linux. Okay, another distribution is the Debian. Okay, so Debian is also a very stable and reliable distribution of the Linux family, and it is also often used as a base image or base for other distros like Ubuntu. So we use Debian also as a base for Ubuntu, and then we also have Fedora. So Fedora is a cutting edge distribution, Linux distribution that's introduced new features before um, even the likes of Rail comes. And then we also have the Arc, or the let me put it in Arc Linux. So Arc Linux is lightweight, basically rolling releases distro for advanced users who like they want to like customize their own Linux operating system. That's the Arc Linux. And then we have Kali Linux. I know most of you might have heard of Kali Linux. So Kali Linux is also designed for cyber security and penetration or testing. So please go over the Linux structure again. Okay, let me just do that quickly. So with the Linux structure, okay, I mentioned that we have different structure, okay, and the first one is the hardware layer, okay, the hardware layer. So the hardware layer is basically the physical component of the computer. Mm. The hardware layer is the physical component of the Linux computer. And you can talk about the CPU, you can talk about the RAM, you can talk about the DEX, you can talk about the network interfaces. Okay, that is the hardware layer of the Linux component. And then we also have the kernel. Okay, the kernel. The kernel is another component of the Linux machine, which is more like the core operating system. Okay, we call it the core operating system. So the kernel is responsible for directly managing system resources. Okay, so simply put, it manages what? The system resources. And what are these system resources? You can talk about process management. So process management, like scheduling processes. You can talk about cron jobs and um, running like automation scripts. These are processes that is handled by the kernel. And then you talk about memory management. So the kernel also manages what? Memory. Okay. So every electronic device has a memory inside. And as part of that, the Linux machine also has a memory. And this memory is managed by what? The kernel. Okay. And then we also have device drivers. So I mentioned earlier on that device drivers act as an interface between the software and then the hardware. And what is the software? The software is the core Linux operating system. Okay. And then the hardware is the physical component like the mouse, the keyboard, the screen, and what have you, the RAM and all those things. They are like hardware components of the Linux operating system. And then we also talk about file system. We are still looking at um the kernel. Okay, we are looking at the processes that the kernels manages. I mentioned process management, I mentioned memory management, I mentioned the device drivers. Now, the next one is the file system. Okay, so the file system basically manages how data is stored and then also retrieved on the Linux operating system. And then finally, what we have, what network management. So the kernel also manages the networking in the Linux operating system. And then the third component of the Linux operating system is the command line interface. Okay. And what is, somebody will ask, what is a command line interface? A command line interface basically is a command interpreter. Okay, it is a command interpreter that allow users to interact with the kernel. So we do so by bash. So you might heard of bash scripting. So that is bash. And then also what the commands, one of the things that the command line interface does is that it converts user commands. So the user commands, like when you want to display containers, maybe a Docker container, you can write something like um sudo docker ps or Docker processes, and it will list all the processes that is running. So these are like user commands. if you want to see um, the amount of memory that has been consumed, you can run a command. We look at all these commands. Okay, you can run a command to display the memory that has been consumed. And these are user commands. Like I said, these are user commands. So these commands are being managed by the kernel. And then also we do that using the command line interface. And I hope that answers your question so that we can move back to the distros that we were on. And so I'll continue from where I left off. I mentioned that we have for the Linux distros, we have Kali Linux, and Kali Linux is designed for cybersecurity and then penetration what testing, or in short, pen testing. So the last one is the Alpine Linux. So Alpine Linux is also a lightweight security focused distribution, which is often used in what containers. Okay. So since you are all learning about DevOps, or you want to become DevOps engineer, one of the Linux distros that you need to keep always in your book is what? Alpine. Okay. Alpines are lightweight and we usually use them for containers, so running application containers. So this is where our focus will be when we start deploying, we start learning how to write a fully fledged production CI/CD pipeline to deploy applications. We learn about Docker containers, we learn about how to containerize a Docker application and other. We'll be making use of Alpine Linux a lot in those regards. So make sure that you keep Alpine in your notes, and then always remember as part of the Linux distros, Alpine is one of the distros or the distributions that you'll be using a lot in your workflow as a DevOps engineer. All right. Now, now that we've looked at the distributions, the next thing that we'll look at is the package manager. Okay. So what is a package manager in Linux? A package manager is a tool that automates the process of what? Installing, updating, configuring, and also removing software in a Linux what? Operating system. Okay. Listen to the definition. I said what? A package manager is what? A tool that automate the process of how you install applications or packages that a particular application needs to run on your Linux server, how you update those packages, and then how you configure those packages. Okay. So let's say you want to install Jenkins server as a standalone on the Linux server. Jenkins, you need to have the Jenkins, um, yeah, Jenkins library. You need to have the library. You need to have all the tools, the URLs, all the packages that you need to install the Jenkins server. But then what actually handles that installation is the package what manager. So it helps you to install the Jenkins server, it helps you to update the Jenkins server, it helps you to configure the Jenkins server, and also remove any unwanted um, package that's maybe causing issues to your application or any other process that is running on your server. And so basically it ensures that your software and its dependencies are managed efficiently. Okay, so that's what package manager is about. And so, how does a package manager work? Okay, so basically, number one, it does that through repositories. So, a package manager fetches a repository, or it fetches a software package from any official website. So basically, if you're installing Jenkins, you go to the Jenkins website, for instance, you'll be able to see the Jenkins package installer. So here, what will happen is that the package manager will fetch that package installer and then run it, automate the running or automate the installation on your behalf. Okay, so an example can also be like Ubuntu. package manager or Ubuntu package repository. Okay, and then we also have installation of software. So package manager helps in the installation of what? Software. So basically, when you install software, the package manager downloads the package from the repository. It also resolves any dependencies, that's additional install additional software that is required for your application to run properly. So, and then also one of the things that package manager does is what? Updating your software. So a single command that can update all your install packages to the latest version. We'll look at that as well. And then we have removing software. So you can use the package manager to remove any software that you no longer need on your server. You can use the package manager to remove that. And examples of some popular package managers you can use in terms of the Linux distro. You can use like for Ubuntu, and then for Debian we have what we call the APT. I think I can, let me see if I'm able to enlarge this. Let me see the settings. See if I can make it a bit bigger. Um, so the theme is dark. Let me see. I want to try and make this a bit bigger. Okay. All right. Please give me a reaction if now it's now bigger for you to see. Give me a reaction. I want to see some reactions. Is it big enough? Hello guys. Okay, okay. So I was talking about some popular package managers, and in terms of that, um, when you take Ubuntu, when you take Ubuntu, when you take Ubuntu and then Debian, for instance, okay, we use what we call APT. Okay, so APT is the package manager that we use when we are trying to install resources, when we are trying to install resources on the server. So for instance, if I want to install, let's say, Docker, if I want to install Docker, I can use something like sudo. I'll talk about sudo briefly as time goes on and what it's actually doing. Okay, apt install Docker. So basically, if I run this command, it will help me to install Docker. So I'm using a package manager apt because I am running Ubuntu. Okay, so for Ubuntu and then Debian, you can use apt to install the any software dependency that you want on your server, and then you can also use it to update your server. So if I use sudo apt update, it will quickly go ahead and then what? Update the application. Oh, I made a mistake. Let me just quit. Okay. And then let me clear the screen. So a, sudo apt update, and it is going to update. So it's asking me for my password. Okay. So you can see as soon as I type my password, the package manager has gone ahead to download all the um, updates resources that I need for my server and then install them. Okay. So as you can see, when I run sudo apt, that's the package what manager. So I'm calling the package manager to update my server. And what it does is that it asks me for my password. Is depending on the user that is logged in. Okay, it is not always that you have to enter your password before you. So as you can see, it ran a CRUD request. So basically, it is giving me a hint of what I'm going to be getting, and then you say get. So get, and then it will download this particular update. So this is a novel update in what release. It's also mirror Hetna, because yeah, that's the server, the provider of this particular server, the company is called Hetna. And so I think it download package or resource from their repository for the server and then install on it. So as you can see, all this has been what updated, and the type, my server type is AMD64. So you can see that it's actually download update for this particular server. And so that's the package what manager. Now the other one, so if I the other thing that I can also run is that sudo apt install nginx, and it's going to install nginx on the server. And then for other distros like Fedora or Red Hat Enterprise Linux, CentOS. I told you CentOS is what has come to end of life. End of life means it's no longer being supported with security patches, and then it is replaced by Rocky Linux. So Rocky Linux. So if I use Rocky Linux right now, if I want to install anything on this Linux distros, okay, the package manager that I'll use is DNF. Okay, we call it DNF. So you know that. Notice that in in Ubuntu and then Debian, we use what we call apt. But in Fedora, Rail, and then Rocky Linux, we are using what we call DNF. Okay, we are using what we call DNF, and so you must note the difference. Okay, they all have different package managers. And then you can also use yarn. Apart from the DNF, you can also use yarn. You can also use yarn for this. Oh, sorry, it's supposed to be M. You can use yarn for these particular Linux distros. Okay, so you can run a command like, so let's say if the operating system you are running it is Fedora or Rail or CentOS or Rocky Linux, you can do what we call sudo DNF install nginx. So when you run this command right now, because the operating system is different, I'm going to get an error. Okay, so when you run this command in an actual Fedora, Rocky Linux, or CentOS, it's going to install nginx. Okay, and then for archive Linux, okay, for archive Linux, we use what we call um Paceman. Mm? Paceman. Paceman. Okay, so if you want to install anything on your server, you run this command called sudo paceman nginx. So you run this command if you are using archive Linux. If you are using archive Linux, this is the command you use when you want to install anything on the server. Okay, and then there are other one like OpenSUSE and all of that. Because of time, we wouldn't look at those. Okay, because we'll be running some commands as time goes on to be able to learn all these things. All right, so we looked at how package managers work in Linux. Okay, now yeah, guys, if you have any question, please if you have any question, please ask. If you don't understand anything, you can. So that's basically how package manager works. Okay, there is no. So let's look at some use case of package managers. Okay, we looked at the commands. So basically, let's look at some use case of package manager. The first one we looked at is how to um, install a package on Linux. Okay, you can also run a command. Please, you can run, because I said we'll be using um, Ubuntu or Debian. You can run these commands. Okay, can you run again the df of package manager? Not sure. What I said earlier was sudo um dnf and then nginx. So you only run this command when you are running on CentOS, and I should go over how to run Linux. I should go over how to use package manager to. Yeah, that's what we are still looking at. Okay, so the first package manager we looked at based on different operating system. Okay, the first one we looked at is with this. The first one we looked at is with this. Okay, so with Ubuntu and then Debian. Okay, this is the package manager that we use, APT. We use APT. We use APT for this particular operating systems, Ubuntu operating, Linux operating system. So let's assume that I want to run a command to install anything on either an Ubuntu or Debian operating system. What we use is sudo apt. So remember, we are using apt as the package manager. Apt what? Install, let's say Docker. Okay, and this will help me. So the package manager will fetch the Docker repository, and it will fetch the Docker um, component. So the component that I need, or the dependencies that I need for Docker to run on this server. So let me hit enter so that you can see. So as you can see, it is a reading package list, than building dependency tree, reading state information. Package Docker is not available, but is referred to by another package. This may mean that the package is missing, has been obsoleted, or is only available from another source. So when I run this command, what happened is that the package manager tried to fetch Docker from a repository, but it couldn't find it. This is because this particular way of installing Docker may not have access to, the server may not have access to um, the Docker repository. But in some cases, if I write this command, sudo apt install docker.io, let me see. So as you can see, as soon as I added docker.io, now it is able to what? To read the repository. Then, did you say the most popular distro Linux for DevOps is? No, I didn't say that. I'm saying the most popular one is when you the one that we use mostly for containers is the Alpine Linux. Okay, we use Alpine Linux for containers. Okay, that's one popular for DevOps engineer when you are going to deploy containers. And then the most popular one that we use mostly for DevOps in terms of our server workflow and all of that is the either Ubuntu or Debian. Okay, hope that makes sense now. So you see, as soon as I run the command sudo apt install docker.io, now it is able to what? It's a building dependency tree. It is able to read the state information. So the following packages were automatically installed and are no longer what required. So it means that I've already installed Docker on this machine. So you don't what require. So you can see all these are dependencies that Docker needs to what to run. Those that I've highlighted. So as part of the installation, it was able to fetch all these what dependencies, Docker dependencies. So it was able to the package manager was able to fetch all these Docker dependencies. But after checking the system, it realized that what I already have these packages what installed. And so they are no longer what required to be installed. So the system or the package manager can go ahead and then what install the Docker component. So you say use sudo apt auto remove to remove them. So if I want the package manager to reinstall these packages, then I can use this command to remove these packages that has already been installed. Do you get it? So if I don't remove them, then you can see that when you can say after this operation 288 megabytes of additional disk space will be used. And so it is asking, do you want to continue? If I use if I select Y, then it means that yes. If I select no, it means that what? No. So at the end of the day, the based on my selection here or my action here will determine whether the installation should continue or it shouldn't. I've already installed these things on the machine, so I'm going to hit no. So this will break the what? The operation. So you can see the final word here is what? Abort. Abort means that what? The operation has been what? Has been stopped because I've already installed these things on the server. But if I choose Y, then it's going to what? Install what? Docker on the server. Hope that makes sense. And then I also mentioned operating systems like Fedora, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, CentOS or Rocky Linux. They use a package manager called DNF. Okay, so they use this particular what? Let me clear the screen. They use this particular package manager DNF. So if you are installing something, this is on these particular Linux distros or distributions, Fedora, Red Hat Linux, CentOS or Rocky Linux, this is the package manager that you use. So assuming this particular Linux distribution is Fedora and I want to install Docker, so I can say sudo DNF hyphen s and then the name of the package that I want to what? Oh no, not s. The name of the package. So I'm going to install, let's say docker.io. So if I'm running any of this command in any of these operating systems on Fedora, Red Hat Linux, or CentOS, basically it will what install back. Let me try it and see. So as you can try, as I hit enter, you see that I got an error saying that what the DNF command does not is not what found. So meaning that on this particular operating system, this package manager does not what exist. I can only run this on Fedora, Red Hat Linux, or CentOS or Rocky Linux. So this is the package manager you use when you are on those operating systems. And then the next operating system that I spoke about is um, is the, let me clear the screen. Is the archive Linux or Arch Linux? So with Arch Linux, we use a package manager called Paceman. Okay, so we use package manager called Paceman. And if I'm on Archive Linux or Arch Linux and I want to run or I want to install docker.io, this is the command that I will run: sudo, then the package manager name, that's Paceman, and then S. And then the name of the package that I want to install. And in this instance, the package name is what? Docker.io. So basically, that's the command or the package manager that you use when you are on Arch Linux. Okay. All right. Any questions? Any questions? You can drop your questions in the comment section. All right. So basically, these are some of the commands that you are when you want to install packages on the on your server. Okay. So we are going to look at some of these commands one by one. Okay. So first of all, we look at on the Ubuntu or Debian, we look at sudo apt install docker.io. So that's basically one of the commands that you use to install Docker on the server. And then if you want to upgrade, okay, if you want to upgrade a particular package, then you can use the word sudo apt, that's the package manager, and then a command argument. So an argument here is that we are what? We are upgrading. So we want to upgrade a particular package. So upgrade what? Docker.io. Docker.io. So always ensure that when you when you are performing any operation on your server, these things are very important. So the package manager that you are using, and then also the argument, that's the command argument, okay, and then the package, the name of the package, okay. So you need to ensure that you always have this. So somebody is asking, so when using Arcline, you don't use install in the command? Yes, you don't use install, okay. You don't use install. Sudo apt upgrade and the package name. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So that's the command that you use. So that's how you upgrade a package in your. So you can also write this command: sudo apt upgrade dash what y. So what this y simply means, what this flag y flag means is that everything else is yes, 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 yes. Everything else is what? Yes, yes, yes. So you see that initially when I run the command sudo install docker.io, you see when you come here, it says what? Do you want to continue with this what operation? Now it is requesting my what? My user what input. But then let me stop this. If I don't want to, if I don't want to use this user input, let me duplicate this. If I don't want to use this user input, okay, if I don't want to use this user input, then I can just go ahead and say sudo apt install docker.io, then bring this. So if I run this command right now, it's going to install Docker, meaning that everything else is it also applicable on Mac? Yes, it is applicable on Mac operating system. You can do this in the Mac command line. What is happening now is that I'm telling the command line interpreter that I don't want to go by this. I don't want this question. I don't want this user input, this particular user input. I don't want it. I want you to run this and then install everything, every single thing. I don't want any user input. But I wouldn't recommend this to you, okay? I wouldn't recommend this to you because once you bring this Y flag, it means that you have given complete permission to the operating system or the kernel to do everything that it wants. So when you run this command, it will be difficult for you to be able to filter any dependencies that you don't want to install. So I always prefer to use this because I can be able to filter any dependencies that I want to install. So in the meantime, let me just abort the. So as you can see, it accepted my user what input and it aborted what the operation. So that's the difference between this and then um, this what command, just this command. Okay, all right. So if I want to remove anything from the server, okay, if I want to remove anything from the server, I'll run this command apt sudo apt remove. I can use the word this word, okay, or I can use the full remove nginx. So let's see. You see now it check when I run the command. It first of all read the package list and then also check the dependency tree and then read all the information. That's the state of the package that I'm what trying to, which is what nginx. So in this instance, nginx is the package. Okay. Then it came back to tell me that what the package nginx is not what installed because it didn't find it as part of the what the packages on the server, and so it is not what removed. You get it? So this is how you remove what packages from the server. And aside this command, I can use the word sudo apt remove, and it will still do the same what the same operation. Invalid operation remove. Anyway, I think this server, this particular user type does not support this operation, but um, in other distros, this shortcut is what accepted. All right, and then also if I want to search a particular package, now we look at how to remove the package, we look at how to install, how to upgrade. The next thing is if I want to search a particular package on the server, I can use this command sudo apt search nginx, or let's use docker. Okay, so as you can see, what this command did was to sort. So it says sorting. It is able to sort all the packages that I have installed on the server. Mhm. All the packages. to display it to me. So anything that has Docker associated, that is what it is able to what? To search for me. I can run this command as well. These are basic ones. We go to the advanced. Okay. I can run this same command sudo apt search nginx. Because nginx is not available, it's going to give me, yes, even though nginx is not available, there are libraries that have nginx what associated, but nginx itself is not already installed. So these are all what libraries that has nginx configured. Okay, these are Linux libraries that has nginx was configured, and so it will obviously bring back result. So that's how you search for packages. Okay, now that we look at how to, so this is all package manager in what action. Mhm. If you have any questions, please um, post them in the comment section, and then I'll answer them. So that's how package manager works. Now let's look at the folder structure. Okay, every every system has folder structures. Okay, Windows has folder structures. Linux also has its own what folder structures. Okay, and so these folder structures, we call them what directories. Okay, so for the folder structure, we have the boot system, which basically stores the boot files. Mhm. Let me start from the let me start from the um let me start from the basics. Important directory and then unimportant directory. Okay, as you go over the search once again. Wow. So the search is that you run this. If you want to search for any package, you run this command sudo apt search and then the package name. So in this instance, the package name we are using is what? Nginx or Docker. So let's run this command. So as you can see, it is able to read those two libraries and then came out with anything that's associated with these two. So um that's how you search for packages on the server. I hope this helps. Okay, because of time, we will need to move on. So we are now looking at folder structure. So in terms of folder structure, every user you create has a home directory. Now I want to see how which directory I'm currently working in. So I'll use the command pwd. Mm. So as you can see, I'm working in this directory, which is the home directory, and then the user is what? Lloyd. You get it? So what this command means is simply means print working directory. So that's this particular command, pwd. That's the full meaning of it. Print what? Working what? Directory. Mhm. This doesn't exist in Linux as a command. So as soon as I use the word print, you can see that it gives me an error. But if I use the word pwd, it is going to display the directory where I'm working. So in this instance, I'm working in the what? In the home directory. And which user which user's home directory am I working in? Lloyd is the user. Hope that makes sense. All right. So let's list some files. First of all, let me go to the home directory. I want to go into the home directory and then we can list some files in the home directory. Let me clear the screen. So if you are in the user directory and you want to go to the home directory, you can just type cd. Cd means, the meaning of cd is change directory. Okay, that's the meaning of cd, change directory. So let me clear the screen. Cd slash what? Home. And it will take me to the home directory. So now if I do pwd, meaning that I'm working in the what? In the home directory. Okay. So now in the home directory, I want us to see some very important directories also in the home directory. Um, ls-a. Okay. Looks like I need to go back to the home directory, pwd. Okay, so now I'm home. Let's clear and do ls. All right, so these are directories in the Linux operating system. Okay, we talk about what? Being the user is merge. We talk about the boot system. We talk about CD-ROM. We talk about dev, etc. Installing image conf.conf, installing image. These are all how do I even describe, binaries or administrative binaries. Okay, we call them administrative what? Binaries. So in the home directory, we have all these administrative what? Binaries. And this particular binary actually contains what? The boot directory. Okay. So if I do cd into the boot directory and I do ls, so all this is what is running on the what? On the server. So inside the boot directory, we have all these configurations. There's Linux configurations in the boot directory. But please bear in mind that these folders or binaries or directories are out of bounds. If you don't have any business relating to this, please don't modify any of these files. Once you touch any of these files, consider your server operating system what? Corrupt. So please, if you don't have any business here, don't touch any file on the home directory, okay, or any binary on the home directory. So as you can see, all these are part of there. So in terms of media, so this handles anything that has to do with images or any media file that you run on the Linux operating system. And then we talk about this OPT basically stores temporal files. Okay. And then they have the root, which actually contains the root user credentials. And then we have the temp user. We also have the temp directory. Also, basically, so if you go into the temp directory, it stores temporal files. Let me go back and then cd into tmp. So all these files that you see here in the temp directory, these are temporal files, okay, which will be removed at some point. All right. So as you can see, let me exit the temp directory and go back to the home directory again. So as you can see, we have the user directory here, which contains the user information, and this also contains variables. Helps you to if you are that good in Linux and then you handle a lot of variables in your Linux environment, this is what takes care of that. Okay, so that's the directories. That's the first part of the directories. Okay, now the second part is, let's say we call them the important system files. Okay, like I mentioned, that is the boot. Mm? So basically, the boot stores all files needed for the operating system or the server to what to boot. Okay, so if you don't have any business doing, don't touch this particular directory. Once you touch this directory, any just know that your operating system is what compromised, and therefore you will have issues running your server. You have issues running your server. Sorry, guys, give me a minute. Okay. I need to power my laptop as it is going on low battery. Okay, let's continue. All right. So, yeah, like I said, do not touch the boot directory. If you don't have anything doing, just leave it as it is. And then we also have the user directory, which I mentioned. This is the user directory. So the user directory basically contains what most user install applications and then what library. So every applications or libraries that you install, your so I would describe this as the user that is currently logged into the operating system. So this handles all the user applications, the Docker, the Jenkins, the Trivy, everything that you install. This basically handles those things that you do. And then we have the var, okay, also known as variable. So this basically stores logs, caches, and temporal files that basically changes what frequently, okay. And then we also have the etc. So etc stores the system configuration. So when you go to cd into etc and then you do ls, you see all the system configurations that is being handled by what etc. So here we have the ACPI, we have the add user. So this particular binary helps you to what to add a user or create a user on your Linux server. Okay, and then not sure what these alternatives are, but this is for Apache. So this handles any Apache web server that you run on your server. I think the most common one. So this is the package manager. For this, the package manager we looked at earlier. This is the package manager that we use to install um, packages on the server. So this control, and this also basically controls what certificates. So it handles certificates like, let's say, SSL certificate and all those, and then anything that has to do with the cloud. So integration with the cloud, console outputs, and all of that. I'm looking at because you use Python, you'll be running Python applications and also any application that has to do so you have to install those packages as well. Let me see. So I saw the password library or binary. Yeah, so this handles what password. Okay, this handles password, and then this handles file editor. I think Nano. So this is for firewall. So this handles time zones. You know, when we're working with the Python automation. We were using Python time zone. So this will help to, when you create a backup, this is what will help to determine the exact time and all of that. And then this also handles what? Network. So network configuration. So you can see we have the net plan, network, networks and all of, so IP tables and what have you. Now this handles system processes. Okay, all these binaries that you see here have a particular role that they play. So this one is for SSL, okay, and then this one is for SSH. If you want to SSH into the server, what else? So this is also security binary directory that handles anything that has to do with security on the server. There are a lot of them. So this is actually in the etc directory, and like I said, it basically stores, the etc directory stores what? System configuration. So all these things that you are seeing here are all system configurations, okay, and each of them has a role that what they play. And like I said, when you want to perhaps install some application, you are using their URL, you cannot type the URL, so you use what we call widget, and so WGET. So this also handles that. I've spoken about the password. So this one handles what? Password, creating user password, changing user password. Yeah, and this also basically gives you application names and all of that. This host, so this handles server, the server that is running the application. So basically, it handles what? Host configuration, server host configurations. DHCP. So how, when you map your DNS to, when you map your DNS to a particular um, IP here and there, this also handles the IP configurations and stuff. Yeah. So all this you see here are system configurations. I think we need to move on to others. So the important um, the important directories that you need to always have in mind is the home directory. We also have the OPT, and then the SRV. We have the SRV. We have the root, and then you talk about temporal file. So let me classify them. Let me classify them so that it makes life more easier for us. So when you talk about important, so this is important system files. Okay, important system files. I mentioned the boot directory, the user directory, the variable or var, and then etc. So this is important what? System directory. Okay, note that important system directory. The other directory that I want us to look at is the user specific. Okay, so in terms of user specific or application specific, you talk about the home directory, you talk about the OPT, and then you talk about the SRV. So these are application specific what? Directories, and then also the root. Don't forget the root as well. So these are application specific what? Directories. Okay, and then the temporal directories. So these are temporal directories as well. We have temp, run, prog, sys, and then dev. So these are temporal what? System directories. Okay, temporal system directories, and all of them can be seen when you go to the home directory and then you do ls. This I'm still in the etc directory, so let me clear that. Do ls. So as you can see, all the directories that I mentioned, so let me highlight them again so that you can see what I'm talking about. Important system directory, number one is the what? The boot directory. Okay, and then the second one is the user. These are important system directories. And then we have the what? The var, which is the variable. And the last one is the what? The etc. These are important what? System directories. Okay. Now, application user specific directory, we talk about what? Home. This is home. And then we have what? OPT. These are application what? User or application specific what? Directory. And then we have the SRV. Where's the SRV? These are SRV. So these are application what? Specific. And then finally the root, the root. So application what? Specific what? Directories. I mentioned what? The home directory. I mentioned OPT, the SRV, the root. Okay, these are what? Um, application specific what directories. So when I share the the file with you, you'll be able to see the differences that I'm talking about. And then we also have the temporal file directories. We have the TMP, that's temp, okay, temporal system directories. You can call them temporal file directories or temporal system directory. Number one is the word TMP, and then number two is the run. Where is run? So this is run, and then also we have the proc. This is proc, and then we have sys. These are all temporal system directories. And then finally, we have what? Dev. Okay. We have dev as temporal system directories. Um, yes, there is another one called the mount points or mount point directory, more like media partitions and all of that. And then the first one is the media. Okay. So we have the media, and then we have the MNT, and then also we have data. So where is data? Where is data? Where is data? Data. Okay, data is not part of this list. Okay, so data is also part. So when you take the MNT, so MNT basically what it does is that it temporarily mounts, serves as a mount point for external file system. Like you are attaching um, another EBS volume to you're attaching another EBS volume to your server, or yeah, your server. And then also the media, so media mount point for all removable medias like USB, CDs, and all of that. No, we don't make use of these um media media tools anymore. And then also data. So data is likely the volume. So in Windows you can see like the C drive, and in Ubuntu you can do like Ubuntu what data. So this is about the or the folder structure or the folder directories of the Linux operating system. If you have any questions here, please ask in the comment section. You can also come back and then watch the video so that you can take your time to understand everything that I've said. Okay. All right. So the next is what? User management. I don't think we'll be able to complete this today. We'll need to have another session next week so that we can continue from file permissions. because Linux is broad and I can't take all this to do it to do the demo once. So we need to host another session and then continue from there. All right. So the last thing that we'll look at today and then we'll continue next week is user management. So user management, Linux is basically a multi-user operating system, okay? Meaning that you can be able to create like multiple users who can operate or do user tasks on the operating system. Okay, so basically, like proper user management ensures security, manage control access, and also file system integrity. And some of the key files involved when it comes to user management, I mentioned the password. So when you go to the when you cd into the etc directory, and then you do ls means list. I mentioned what? Password. So this basically stores user password or user account and what have you. Okay. And if you want to create a particular user, let's look at how to create a user in Linux. Okay. So if you want to create a particular user, you just have to do sudo add a sudo user add and then hit enter, and it is asking me for my password because I'm running a command. This is a high level command that I'm running, so it has to ask me to grant permission for this to happen. So let's say I want to create a user. Let me type the user. Let me enter my password. Okay. Let's see what happened here. User add. Okay. So when I enter user add, okay, sudo sudo user add, I need to add the name of the user, and in this instance the name of the user will be test, and then enter. So now the user has been what? Created. Okay. Now that the user has been created, this way of creating users does not create a home directory for the user. Okay, it just created a user, but it didn't create a home directory. So this user cannot perform what? Maximum functions on the system. But if you want to create a user that will actually um, give like the user a home directory, then I need to use what we call sudo add user and specify the user what name. So here I can say MJ. The username is what? MJ. Error, please enter username matching the regular expression. Okay, regular expression. Let's take it again. Sudo add user um, test2. So now you see that when I use add user instead of user add, you see the information I'm getting. So first information is adding what? User2, and that's the name of the user. Selecting what? UID. So he selected a UID from the range of 1000 to this for the user. And then it is what? Adding new user group called what? Test. That's the user. And then to this what? Group. So the user adding new user, it added the user which is test user 2 to the group, and which is what? This group. And then the next information is that it is creating a home directory for the user. So as you can see, from the home directory, we have what? User 2. So this user can be able to log in into the system and then have its own what? Home. Now, the next thing that it did is that it copies what? Files from the etcd so that etc, and you know the etc contains what? System configuration file. So it is what? Adding those system configurations so that when the user log in, the user can have its own interface to be able to manipulate or manipulate text or even create other users. Okay. And then it is asking for what? Password. So now, when the user is going to log in into the server, the user will use its name as what? Test2. And then if I create a password for the user right now, the user will use that password to what? To log in into the server. Do you get it? So let's create a password as test2 and then enter. And then we'll retype the password as test2, enter. So now, as you can see, a password has been what? Created for the user successfully. Now, it says what? Changing the user information for test2. Enter the new value or press enter for default. So it is asking me for the full name of the user, but I'll leave it as the default and then click on what? Enter. Now the room number, we are not in a hospital, so I'll leave it as default. And then here I can be able to add the what? The user's work phone. So when I go to this particular user's profile, if I have entered all this information, I'll be able to see all this information on the user profile. And then I'll click on what? Enter. I don't want to add a phone. And then home phone, no. And then add a no. Is this information correct? Yes. I want to create a user. So now the user has been what? Created. So I can be able to log out of this server and then log in with the user information. So let me go to the server. Okay, this is the server that I'm using. Okay, I'm going to log in with the user's credential. So for the password, I use test what? 2. I'll need this password. So let me put it somewhere. And then type the user's password that I created. Test what? 2. And then log in again. So as you can see, what do you see here? This is the user. So now this user that I just created has what? Logged in. And as you can, let me make this bigger. So as you can see, when you look down here, we have what? 2. So it means that a new user has what? Logged in. And this user has its own home directory. So as you can see, what? Created for the user. Now the user can be able to what? Manipulate what? This particular server. So let me clear this and then do pwd print working directory. So as you can see, this is the user's what? Working directory. So the user has a home directory, and then a folder that is created for the user. Now the user can be able to list objects. So let me go to the user's home directory and then do a list. So as you can see, once the user lists, the user is able to see another user. It is able to see the test user folder that was created. Okay. So that's how you create a user on what? Linux. Don't use the user add, but instead use add user so that the user, a home directory can be able, a home directory can be created for the user. So I'm gonna sign off. Okay, so we'll end the stream here. We are not done with the user management. We are not done with the user management. So I think we'll continue with in our next demo session. I'll communicate the time and the date, but I'll schedule the stream so that you can get notifications. We'll look at how to change the user's password, how to create like new password for the user, set like password expiring date, and what have you. Okay, so we'll look at all those stuff, and then also how to like remove a user, and yeah, how to remove a user and all of that. Okay, yeah, God bless you too. So we will end the stream. I didn't want this to be long, but it is already long. So we'll end the stream, and then I will schedule a time that we can meet again next week, and then we'll continue with the user management, and then we'll look at file management, we look at file permissions, we look at process management, we look at monitoring, networking, and then end the session with what disk management. All right. So thank you guys for joining. Those of you who have not subscribed to the channel, kindly do so. Subscribe, and let's grow this channel together. This channel, I said, is for the mentorship group. Anything that is generated from this channel will be used to buy AWS subscriptions, whereby you people will be using it for your training. You can launch servers here and there, and we can subscribe to course platform like Code Cloud, a Cloud Guru, so that you can be taking some of these courses and then also be improving. So this channel is for the mentorship group. I want everybody to learn. I want everybody to acquire knowledge in DevOps and be great at DevOps. So kindly subscribe to the channel. Let's grow the channel together. Okay. Thank you for joining us as well. Somebody is asking, please say the server you are using, which distro it is. Yes, I was using Ubuntu. Okay. I was using Ubuntu. Is it a VOT? What do you mean by is it a VOT? I'm not sure I understand your question. What is the name of the interface you are using? Okay, the name of the interface I'm using is Temios. Let me put it in the chat. Temios. So you can download it. Temios. Termius. Temios. So you can download it, and then yes, Temios. So you can download it and then use it to manage your servers. I basically use it all the time to manage my servers. So you can download it and then use it to manage your servers. All right. So next week, let me announce next week Friday, we'll continue with the rest of the lesson. Okay, it's long and I can't do all of it at a sitting, and so we need to have another live stream. We'll finish with the user management, finish with file management, finish with file permissions, finish with process management. Then we look at monitoring, networking, disk management, and then we bring this chapter to an end. And then we'll continue with the rest of the course in the mentorship program. So thank you guys for joining. Those who have not subscribed, please subscribe. Thank you so much, Lloyd. Thank you to Victor for joining the stream. I really appreciate each and everyone here. Like I said, please subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Let's grow the channel together. This channel is for the mentorship group. Everything that we generate from here will go to subscribing to courses, and also paying for AWS Azure platform for the group to be able to learn and deploy servers, so that they don't have to spend any money on all these things. I know a lot of people are sending courses and all of that, but I just want to give back to my community. And so if you are here, thank you for being part of this community. Let's spread the news, invite our friends so that they can also learn. And please ask all the questions that you want to ask. If you have any questions, please ask. Okay. Let me read some of the messages, and then we can bring the stream to an end. Say, thank you so much, Lloyd. Thank you to Victor for joining us. Temios or Ubuntu, say. No, the server I'm using is Ubuntu, but the tool that I'm using to connect to the server is Temios. Okay, it's Temios. Just curious, is it possible we move to an environment you will be able to ask questions with voice like Google Meet? Um, okay. I think the plan is to do all the streaming on YouTube so that we can grow the channel, and then if we go to other platform, I mean, yeah, there are some sessions that we might go there and then record and record. So we'll probably do those. I'm not sure why. Okay, you cannot ask. Yeah. YouTube doesn't allow voice and all of that. But don't worry, we'll figure something out. But don't worry. Even after the stream, you can, while the stream is going on, you can be sending your questions in and out. Do my best to answer all of them. Thank you so much. Thank you, Buki. Sorry if I don't pronounce your name well. Ezekiel said we love you. I love you guys too. Thank you, Wildlife. We are grateful. Yeah, I'm also grateful for you. Um, Somebody is still Daniel. Are you still asking? No, I mentioned that the server I'm using is Ubuntu. Okay, the server operating system I'm using is Ubuntu. Depends on the platform. So AWS, you can launch EC2 instances in AWS. Um, I think it is per hour, 0 point something something dollars per hour. So, and then there are other bare metal platforms like Hetna. You can also do Digital Ocean, and then also Google and Azure. You can also just go to these platforms, go to their website, and then basically check their pricing models for servers. So you can literally, I know with AWS now they give you like a $200 credit when you create a new account. So you can be able to use that $200 credit to, um, practice some of these things that we are learning. And then also, when you, yeah, the same thing goes to Azure and then Google Cloud. I know they also give some credit. I think Google Cloud is basically $300 or something. I'm not too sure, but you can go to their website and then just do some research and see. I know DigitalOcean also gives some credit for first time account creation and all of that. So you can do that. And you can use those server platforms to be able to practice some of these things. All right. So those of you who are not in the mentorship channel, kindly check the YouTube channel. The mentorship link is there. We also have Discord link you can join where we post resources. So yes, kindly subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys on Friday. We'll meet on Friday to continue with the rest of the demo session. Have a nice day, wherever you are across the world, and enjoy yourself. Make sure you spend some time to watch the video again, and then if you don't understand anything, you can comment in the comment section, and I'll do my best to answer all your questions. Thank you, and bye bye.